She said it while folding jeans. No drama, no emotion, just a sentence, like crossing another task off a to-do list. And from that moment on, nothing was ordinary anymore. No more familiar dinners, no more routine touches. Even the silence between them began to sound different, like the final echo of something that had already gone. She thought he'd break, but he vanished, step by step, quietly, coldly. And by the time she realized it, it was too late. He was already on the other side, where pain turns into clarity, and regret sounds like the belated confessions of those who've already lost. There are no dramatic scenes here, just the quiet collapse of intimacy, when one person left long ago and the other is only just beginning to notice. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watch this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. She said it while folding jeans, calmly, casually. There was no dramatic pause, no raised voice. Just a sentence, spoken like she was jotting something off a to-do list. I think you'd be better without me. That was Penelope's line, not posed as a question, not delivered with doubt, just a simple, unwavering truth. I stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching her match socks at the foot of the bed. She didn't glance up. Her tone was even, like she'd practiced that sentence in her head for weeks and had finally reached the moment to release it. I didn't reply right away. My eyes dropped to the grocery bag I'd brought in, and I set it down gently by the wall. Is that really what you want? I asked. She hesitated, but barely. Her hands kept moving, folding methodically. I'm not sure what I want, she said, her voice level. But I know it's not this. She passed me, laundry basket balanced in her arms, not slowing down. No look, no hesitation. Like we were roommates managing chores, not a couple watching everything fall apart. I trailed her into the hallway. We're not going to talk about it? I asked. She paused on the staircase, halfway up, and turned just enough to glance over her shoulder. There's nothing left to discuss, Miles, she said. I've felt this way for a long time. I just didn't know how to say it until now. I didn't follow her. I stayed planted under the dim hallway light, trying to piece together what had just cracked open. No shouting, no crying, just a hollow weight settling in my chest. She'd said what was true for her. That wasn't the hardest part. What stung the most was how easily it had come out, how far gone she already was. For her, this was just tying the final knot in something long unraveled. And me? I hadn't even noticed we were slipping toward the edge. The signs were there, in hindsight, not loud or dramatic. They crept in quietly, unnoticed. She used to send messages throughout the day, nothing big, just little things. How's your day? Want Thai tonight? One day, those messages just stopped. She said work had picked up, tight deadlines, non-stop meetings, new pressures. I didn't press her. Then she stopped waiting up. I'd come home from a long day, and the apartment would be dark. No dinner, no TV buzzing in the background, just her in bed, turned away, asleep, or pretending to be. One night over dinner, I finally brought it up. Penelope, is everything okay? She kept slicing into her salmon, eyes fixed on her plate. There's nothing wrong, Miles. I'm just tired. You've been tired for a while. That made her pause. She met my gaze, her face unreadable. And you've been checked out just as long, she said. Maybe we're both worn down. I didn't argue. I let the words hang there. After that, I made an effort. Cooked more, handled the errands. I even planned a weekend away by the lake, hoping it might spark something. She told me she couldn't go, too much work. But she spent the weekend out with people I'd never met. Said they were co-workers. I never saw proof. She came home smelling faintly of a perfume I didn't recognize, with a smile that vanished the moment she walked through the door. It didn't feel like she was taking a break. It felt like she was redrawing the lines between us without saying so. One night, I leaned in to kiss her goodnight. She turned her face away. No words, just that. I sat up that night, alone in the living room, listening to the silence until well past midnight. She'd already started letting go. I just hadn't seen it. A week after that quiet, clinical confession over laundry, I found the first unmistakable sign. It was a Tuesday. She said she had dinner plans with a client, someone in town from Toronto. She left the house wearing a black blouse I hadn't seen in years and heels I didn't remember her owning. She left her wedding ring in the little dish by the sink. At 10:46 p.m., a message pinged on the iPad she'd left on the kitchen counter. She was still signed in. I didn't mean to look. It was just there. The sender was someone named Damien, a name I didn't recognize. The last message said, "Tonight was good. You always leave me wanting more. No emojis, no extra punctuation, just words. Clear, familiar, intimate." I tapped into the conversation. It went back weeks, some short replies, some playful exchanges, inside jokes I couldn't follow, plans that weren't spelled out, but didn't need to be. She came home just after midnight. I was still sitting at the kitchen table waiting. She looked surprised to see me, caught off guard, but not guilty. "You're still up?" "Yeah," I said, eyes locked on hers. "How was dinner?" "Long," she replied, heading to the sink for water. "Who's Damien?" Her shoulders twitched, just slightly. Then she turned back, composed. "He's a co-worker. From Toronto." I stared at her. Didn't feel like just a co-worker. She held my gaze. "I don't know what you think you're accusing me of, Miles." I stood there, calm and composed. There was no anger in my tone. I'd gone through every word she'd sent. The room was thick with silence. She set her glass down with care, then crossed her arms tightly over her chest. "If you're imagining something physical happened, it didn't. That's not the part that haunts me." Her eyelids fluttered slowly. "Then what is it?" she asked. "Was it the attention? The thrill of being seen? You just stopped needing any of that. From me." She didn't protest. No denial, no apology. Her response was steady. "You don't get to play the victim. You walked away first." That's when everything fell into place. She didn't regret her actions, only that she'd been exposed. And how do you fix what someone doesn't even acknowledge is broken? After that night, I let it go. I didn't mention Damien again. I stopped looking for answers. Instead, I began to retreat, subtly but deliberately. I no longer swung by the store on my way home. I stopped tossing her laundry in with mine. Slowly, I let the idea of us come apart. The dishes stayed where they were. I left unopened mail piled on the counter. On our drives, silence replaced conversation. At first, she seemed unaware, or maybe she chalked it up to another lull, one of those quiet stretches couples hit now and then. But on day 5, she finally asked, "Did you forget the gas bill?" "No," I answered, eyes on my coffee. I covered my share. A week slipped by. She texted from work. "Did you drop off the dry cleaning?" I left it unread. That night she stood in the hallway, arms folded like a shield. "Are you ignoring me?" she asked. I brushed past her. "No," I said. "Just letting you handle your own obligations." That did more damage than any shouting match ever could. The next morning, she did her makeup like she used to, hairstyled, red lipstick, dressed for someone. But that someone wasn't me. That evening she told me she was grabbing drinks with Lara from HR. But while she was getting ready, her phone lit up, twice. Damien. I didn't say a word. When she left, I turned off the porch light and locked the door. Around midnight, she knocked. I answered slowly. She stood there, expecting a fight. "Forget your keys?" I asked. Her eyes narrowed. "You've been acting like such an asshole lately." I gave a slight shrug, picked it up from a master. She didn't respond, just walked past me like I was furniture. But I could feel it, the shift beneath her steps. She'd assumed I'd stay still while she wandered. But now the ground was moving and she had no idea what was coming. I waited, quietly setting the stage. A new bank account, a lease, my name only, movers scheduled. I kept my voice level, gave nothing away. Then I made the one call Penelope never saw coming. Her cousin Eva and I had always been cordial, not exactly close, but friendly enough. I remembered something she'd once said at a family barbecue, standing next to me by the grill. Penelope falls for fireworks but marries the match. Back then, it didn't mean much. Now, it made perfect sense. Eva picked up on the second ring. Miles? I need a small favor. No drama. She didn't even pause. 2 nights later, we met at a coffee shop. I showed her the screenshots, texts between Penelope and Damien, calendar notes that didn't match the stories I'd been told. Eva exhaled deeply. So it's true. She claims it never crossed a line, I said. Eva nodded thoughtfully. With Penelope, it usually starts slow. I looked her in the eye. I'm not here to turn this into sides. I just want her off balance. How? Just drop Damien's name sometime, casually. Don't press. Just enough to make her wonder how you found out. Eva raised an eyebrow. You want to shake her up? She's gotten too confident, hasn't she? Exactly. She needs to feel uncertain. Eva gave a wry smile. Always this calm when you're executing a plan? I didn't smile back. This isn't vengeance. I'm just flipping the switch. Penelope started shifting within 48 hours. She got home earlier, asked what I felt like for dinner, sat closer on the couch, laughed too loudly at nothing. I said nothing, just watched. A few days later, she asked, "Do you think we're okay?" My voice was flat. You tell me. She didn't reply, but her eyes lingered on mine, searching. For the first time in months, she looked like someone who knew she was losing and realized I wasn't lifting a finger to stop it. That's when she began trying too hard. She started cooking real meals again. No more reheated takeout. Stocked the fridge with my favorite beer. Played old playlists while I showered. One night, she asked if I wanted to get away for the weekend. Just us. We should talk, she said. Reconnect. I told her I had work. On the weekend? She asked. Since when? Since I stopped being the only one trying to resuscitate this marriage, I replied, not even glancing up from my laptop. She never pleaded, but I caught the panic flare briefly in her eyes, like a candle's first flicker. By the following Tuesday, I had erased my presence from the shared computer, transferred every mutual account, and shut down the backup credit card. Everything was either under my name or no longer linked to her. She hadn't realized yet that the balance of our joint account had vanished. The bills? They were already under my control. The version of our life she thought still existed had dissolved quietly behind the scenes. That Saturday morning, she hovered near the counter while I made coffee. "Did you change the Netflix password?" she asked. "I did," I said simply. She waited, expecting more. I took a slow sip. "You said you needed space." A flicker of pain crossed her face before she masked it with a smile. "I didn't mean for it to go like this. I know exactly what you meant, Penelope. You just didn't think I'd follow through." That evening, she left her phone face up on the kitchen table, not checking it, even when it rang, pretending it didn't matter. I didn't bring it up. I didn't need to. I already knew. The next morning, she lingered in bed longer than usual, curled in one of my old t-shirts like it still carried weight. She waited for me to say something, a glance, a word, anything. I got dressed in silence. At the door, her voice stopped me. "Is this really how we end?" I turned to her, calm and clear. "It ended when you needed someone else just to feel seen." Then I walked out. She didn't come after me. That was Wednesday. She was at the office when I left for good. I packed up everything that belonged to me, clothes, paperwork, my laptop, loaded the car, and drove across the city. The key slid into the lock of the short-term place I'd already secured. Small. Peaceful. Mine. Back at the apartment, I left a letter on the kitchen counter. Penelope, you were right. You are better on your own. So am I. The bills are covered through the end of the month. Everything has been divided. The lease is in my name now. No more fighting. No more silence that feels like punishment. The keys are in the bowl near the door. Miles. I didn't stick around to see how she took it. I turned my phone off and let the day pass in quiet. That night, when I powered it back on, the screen lit up with missed calls. 3, then 5, and a message. Where are you? I didn't reply. She didn't reach out again the next day, or the one after that. But on Saturday, I got a text from Eva. She showed up at Mom's in tears, completely shattered. I didn't ask what she said. I just wrote back, thanks. That Sunday night, Penelope finally messaged me. I know I screwed up. Please, talk to me. We can fix this. Once, that would have pulled me back without question. But now, it felt like watching someone chase a train long after it had left the platform. She hadn't noticed me slipping away. Now that I was gone, she could finally hear the silence I'd left behind. A week passed before I agreed to meet her. We chose a neutral spot, a diner on 12th. She was already seated when I arrived, hands wrapped around a mug, hair tied up, wearing that navy sweater I got her last December. Thanks for coming, she said quietly. I nodded, but didn't sit right away. Her eyes were swollen. You didn't even say goodbye. I did, I said. You just didn't hear it until I was already gone. She bit her lip. I don't even know what to say except, I'm sorry. I thought I needed something different. Thought I'd find clarity, but I just lost everything. Some people don't find clarity until too late, I replied, sliding into the seat across from her. The silence that followed didn't carry tension anymore, just the weight of an ending. I broke things off with Damien, she murmured. I assumed, I said. He never meant anything. He meant enough that you risked everything for him. Her voice cracked. I never meant to lose you. You didn't lose me, I said gently. You let me go. That's not the same. She reached into her bag and took out an envelope. I wrote this last night, in case you ever wanted to understand how I ended up here. She placed it on the table. I already understand what matters, I said. I pulled my own envelope from my coat and set it beside hers. Her eyes widened. She stared at it like it was a live wire. Divorce papers? I gave a single nod. She didn't cry right away, just held the envelope like maybe it could change something if she held it long enough. When she finally found her voice, it was barely audible. Is there any chance, any version of this, where we find a way back? I rose from the booth. Maybe once, I said, but I was the only one fighting for us. Now I've finally learned to fight for myself. Tears welled in her eyes. Miles. I reached for my coat. Take care of yourself, I told her. You'll have to. Then I walked out. The door closed behind me with a gentle thud, final, quiet. She once told me I'd be happier without her, and now, I was. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you? Everything was perfect, until a single fleeting glance set off a chain reaction that burned through decades of trust and shattered a family into pieces. He came to rekindle their connection. She came to feel alive again. But in one night, it all collapsed, leaving only the truth, raw, undeniable, and impossible to escape. Will the pain be the end, or the beginning of something new? The answer lies behind the door he should have never opened. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watched this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. Let me take you back to a trip that was supposed to be one of the highlights of our lives, a long-awaited vacation to Cancun with my wife Harper and our dear friends, Max and Sloan. After a decade of marriage and raising two amazing kids, we looked at this getaway as a rare chance to reconnect, to momentarily step away from the grind of everyday responsibilities. Before we left, we dropped the kids off at Harper's parents' house. They doted on their grandchildren, and we knew they would be showered with love and care while we were gone. It almost felt like stepping back in time. Just the two of us again, ready for sun-soaked adventures, ocean breezes, and laughter-filled nights. At least, that's what I thought. After a long, tiring flight, we finally arrived in Cancun. We checked into a breathtaking resort perched right along the coastline and headed up to our rooms to freshen up before kicking off the vacation. Standing out on the balcony, feeling the ocean air kiss my skin, I glanced over at Harper, a deep sense of gratitude washing over me. She looked beautiful, her face lit up with joy. Later that afternoon, the four of us made our way to the beach. The sea shimmered in a dazzling shade of blue, the sand burned warmly under our feet, and for the first time in ages, I could feel the tension start to leave my body. While we were laying out our towels, I noticed a man not too far from us. His attention kept flickering in our direction, more specifically toward Harper. At first, I chalked it up to paranoia, but then I caught the way Harper returned his glance, a subtle but unmistakable shift in her expression that sent a chill through me. "Hey, love," I said, giving her a gentle nudge. "Want to grab a couple of drinks?" She flashed a bright smile. "Actually, let me get them. You guys relax." "I don't mind." "Okay," I said, settling into a conversation with Max as she headed toward the bar. A few minutes later, I looked over, and there he was, the same guy from the beach, standing beside her at the bar. They were talking closely, her body language relaxed and familiar. She laughed at something he said, tossing her hair in a way that twisted my gut. A knot began to form in my stomach, but I tried to shake it off. When she came back, carefully balancing 4 drinks, I couldn't help but ask, "Who was that you were chatting with?" She gave a casual shrug. "Just a guy named Robert," she said breezily. "He's been to Cancun a bunch and was recommending some cool spots." I nodded, pretending to take it at face value, but her offhand tone gnawed at me. I told myself to drop it. Maybe I was reading too much into nothing. Still, unease lingered. That night, we had big plans. Dinner, drinks, maybe even dancing into the early hours like we used to. But about an hour before we were set to go, I found Harper standing in front of the bathroom mirror, her fingertips pressing against her forehead. "My head is killing me," she said with a wince. "You okay?" I asked, my excitement for the night quickly giving way to concern. Leaning heavily on the counter, she shook her head. "Maybe it's jet lag or too much sun." "I'm not sure. But I have this awful headache," she murmured, squeezing her eyes shut. "I don't think I can make it tonight." "That's fine," I said, hiding my disappointment. "We can just stay in if you want." She shook her head, forcing a strained smile. "No, really. You should go. Don't miss out because of me. Some rest and I'll be fine." Though reluctant, I agreed. After a nice dinner with Max and Sloan, we were about to head to a local bar when Max cracked a joke that sent salsa flying onto my shirt, a casualty of an overstuffed taco. "I can't show up like this," I laughed. "I'm gonna swing back and change, maybe check in on Harper too. I'll catch up with you guys at the bar." I hopped into a cab and headed for the resort, figuring I'd be back before they'd even finished their first drinks. As I neared our room, I heard it. Faint, but unmistakable. A woman's moans, soft and breathy, filtering through the door. My heart slammed against my ribs. I tried to convince myself it had to be someone else, some other room. But deep down, I knew. I shoved the door open, and the scene that greeted me cut straight through my soul. Harper was tangled in the sheets, her bare skin bathed in the moonlight, locked in the arms of the same man from the beach, Robert. His face was flushed, his arm wrapped possessively around her. I stood frozen, the world tilting around me, fury surging through my veins. Harper gasped, scrambling to cover herself. "Jack!" she cried, her voice breaking in panic and shame as she frantically reached for her clothes. "What the hell is this?" I shouted, my voice raw with betrayal. "Jack, please," she sobbed, tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry." "Sorry?" I spat the word like poison, a bitter laugh escaping me. "That's all you have?" Robert stumbled over some weak excuse, snatching up his clothes in a rush. "You're not going anywhere," I barked, stepping toward him. "Not until you tell me why you thought it was okay to touch another man's wife." He stammered an apology I barely heard, then bolted, leaving me standing there in the ruins of everything I thought was real. Harper collapsed into sobs, reaching out with shaking hands. "Jack, please," she wept. But it was already too late. The damage was done. I made an unforgivable mistake. Honestly, I don't even know what was running through my mind. "Oh, you don't know," I yelled back at her. "Let me help you remember. We came here to start over, to rebuild." "Does that ring a bell?" I snapped, my anger boiling over. "And now you're ready to throw it all away for some random guy you just met on the beach?" Tears welled up in her eyes as she stammered, "I was just so tired of everything. Robert made me feel alive again. There was this spark." "A spark," I repeated bitterly, my voice thick with disgust. "We've been married 10 years, Harper. We have children, and you're ready to burn it all down over some fleeting rush with a stranger?" "Jack, please," she sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this." But I couldn't stand to hear another word. In silence, I packed my belongings, every movement heavy with heartbreak. She reached out, grabbing at my arm, crying, begging, but her touch only made the revulsion inside me churn harder. Each time her fingers brushed against me, it felt like another fresh lie. I turned away from her, refusing to meet her gaze. Instead, I grabbed my phone and shot off a quick text to Max. "Not coming tonight. Something happened. We'll explain later." Without a word, I walked out, found a nearby hotel, and checked in. Sleep never came. I spent the whole night staring at the ceiling, tormented by images of our children, the years we had built together, and how every whispered "I love you" now felt like pure mockery. The next morning, I dragged myself downstairs to the lobby, desperate for a cup of coffee to fight the numbness clawing at me. As I sat there nursing the bitter brew, my phone buzzed against the table. It was Sloane calling. I picked up, her voice tight with anxiety. "Jack, we saw Harper earlier," she said quickly. "She's a wreck. She keeps asking where you are. What's going on?" I hesitated for a moment, unsure how much to reveal. But these were my closest friends. They deserved the truth. "She cheated," I said finally, my voice low, "with some guy she met on the beach." Sloane gasped so loudly I could hear it through the phone. "Oh my God, are you serious?" I could barely believe it myself. Later that day, Harper managed to track me down. Sloane must have told her where I was. Harper looked completely shattered. Red, swollen eyes, tangled hair, and pure panic etched into her expression. But as she sobbed and pleaded in front of me, all I felt was a cold, empty void. "Jack," she whispered, her voice raw as she tried to grab my hand. "Please, don't do this. I love you. I was selfish, I was stupid, I wasn't thinking." I yanked my hand away. "You didn't just betray me," I said, my voice flat and unfeeling. "You betrayed our children, and that's something I can never forgive. But can't we fix it?" She wept. "I can change. I don't want to lose you. It's already done, Harper, I said, my words like ice. When we get back, I'm filing for divorce, and I'm going after full custody. I'm also telling your parents everything you did. Her face went ghostly pale. True fear crossed her features. She knew exactly what that meant. Her parents were old school, deeply committed to family values, loyalty, and honor. They had welcomed me like a son and trusted me to protect their grandchildren. Once they learned the truth, it would destroy them, not only because of the scandal, but because it came from their own daughter. I watched the slow, dawning horror settle over her, the brutal realization that she was about to lose not just her marriage, but the trust and love of her own family. "Jack, please," she whispered, trembling. "Don't tell them. They'll never forgive me." "They deserve the truth," I said, my tone cutting. "They deserve to know the real you." "I respect your parents more than you realize," I continued coldly. "They treated me as one of their own. They earned my honesty." Her cries turned into broken, gasping sobs. Her shame was written all over her. But I felt no pity. I only wanted to be far away from the lies, the betrayal, and the person she had become. When I returned, I sat down with her parents and told them everything. Their reaction was exactly what I had expected: crushing sorrow, seething anger, and deep humiliation. They stood firmly with me, promising their full support throughout the looming divorce and custody battle. Harper tried everything she could think of to win me back, but I knew better. She wasn't truly sorry for what she had done. She was only devastated because she got caught. I refused to let myself be ensnared in her lies again. That foolish spark she had chased ended up costing her everything: her marriage, her family's trust, and her sense of security. 7 grueling months later, the divorce was finalized. Throughout that time, I stayed in the family home, raising the kids. Harper drifted aimlessly, sleeping on friends' couches, unable to find any stable footing. Her parents, still furious and ashamed, refused to let her move back in with them. She had counted on winning custody of the kids, thinking that would also hand her back the house. But that plan collapsed almost immediately. With her parents standing firmly behind me, I was awarded full custody. I kept the house too. True to their word, Harper's parents remained by my side through every court hearing, every painful conversation, mourning the daughter they no longer recognized. In the end, they found a kind of peace in protecting their grandchildren, even if it meant standing against their own child. In the months that followed, I poured my energy into rebuilding our lives, meeting each new day with determination. My entire purpose shifted toward crafting a safe, nurturing home for my children, leaning heavily on the steadfast support of family and friends who had never wavered in their loyalty. During this period, Harper's parents became even more deeply involved, embracing their roles as grandparents with open hearts, eager to wrap the children in the affection and security they deserved. From time to time, Harper would come by to collect the kids for her allotted visits. There was always a shadow of sadness in her eyes, a trace of remorse she struggled to hide. At one such meeting, she offhandedly shared that she had begun a new relationship. I found myself feeling nothing: no anger, no sadness, just a calm, steady acceptance that our lives were now unfolding along separate paths. My world, and more importantly, the world I was building for my children, had regained its stability. The pain her betrayal had once caused had long since lost its hold on us. In the end, I had secured something she had forfeited: a future rooted in devotion, honesty, and unwavering love. We were free at last to move forward, and the life I was shaping with my children gleamed with a hope and a brightness I had once thought impossible. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend, and if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you. The perfect anniversary getaway in the Maldives was meant to be the pinnacle of a 30-year marriage. But everything changed in a single evening, when over a glass of wine, the woman he loved spoke words that chilled him to the bone. It wasn't a jealous outburst, nor a hidden affair, something far worse. It was brutal honesty wrapped in cynicism, betrayal disguised as a relationship refresh. Behind one door, a luxury villa, romance and champagne. Behind another, a law that doesn't forgive. When emotions boil and the face you've shared half your life with turns into a cold mask of indifference, there's only one option left. Take action. Coldly, deliberately, without mercy. What began as a dream vacation would spiral into an international scandal, an arrest, disgrace, and an ending no one would ever forget. Not all betrayals end in tears, some end in criminal charges. Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If you're here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends or family. It really helps my channel a lot. Please tell me in which city or country you watched this video. I value every one of your comments. So, let's get started. As our plane touched down on the shimmering islands of the Maldives, I turned to Kendra, squeezed her hand, and grinned. "Can you believe it's been 30 years?" I asked. She laughed gently, her eyes bright with affection. "I believe it, and I wouldn't trade a moment," she replied. We left the aircraft, the humid, inviting air wrapping around us as we made our way to the terminal, both of us buzzing with anticipation for this anniversary trip. The resort itself seemed almost unreal, with flawless white beaches and endless blue waters stretching as far as the eye could see. I was still lost in the beauty of our surroundings when a familiar voice called out, "Lucas? Kendra?" Spinning around, I spotted Marissa and her husband Jordan walking toward us. Marissa, who I used to work with, looked just as surprised as I felt. "What are the chances?" she said, her smile wide. "Small world," I replied, shaking Jordan's hand. Marissa's grin widened. "Seriously, we just needed to get away for a bit. Work has been exhausting." Kendra joined in with a friendly nod. "Same for us. We're here to celebrate." We shared a few pleasantries, promising to catch up again soon, and went our separate ways. The afternoon slipped away as Kendra and I unpacked, settled in, and strolled along the sun-drenched shoreline. Everything felt perfect. Later that evening, sitting together on the balcony of our villa, a bottle of wine between us, Kendra turned to me with a strange, unreadable look. "There's something I have to tell you," she said suddenly. I set down my glass, a wave of unease washing over me. "What's going on?" I asked. She paused, took a deep breath, and finally spoke. "I want to sleep with Jordan." I stared at her, thinking I must have misunderstood her words. "What did you say?" She looked straight at me, her expression calm and certain. "I've thought about this a lot. There's something between Jordan and me. Now that we're all here, it just feels like the right moment." My stomach twisted. "You can't be serious," I managed to say. She shook her head. "I am, Lucas." I let out a harsh laugh, unable to hide my disbelief. "On our anniversary trip, you're telling me you want to sleep with another man? With Jordan?" She reached out, but I pulled away. "It isn't about hurting you," she insisted. "I just need this, just for one night. It won't change what we have." My thoughts spun out of control, my heartbeat drumming in my ears. It was obvious this wasn't a fleeting idea or a result of too much wine. She had made up her mind. After a long, heavy silence, I finally let out a breath and said, "No." I stared at Kendra, my mind reeling, heart pounding. For a moment, I wondered if this was some sort of elaborate joke, but the unwavering look on her face told me she meant every word. "So, you've been planning this?" I asked, my voice rough and edged with shock. She nodded, calm as ever. "Yes. Marissa and I discussed it weeks ago. She's okay with it. Actually, she's always found you attractive," Kendra added, her tone matter-of-fact. Frustrated, I ran my hand through my hair. "And you assumed I'd be fine with this? Did you just expect me to jump into bed with Marissa while you're with Jordan? Kendra sighed, as if I was being unreasonable. That's not the point, Lucas. This is about bringing some excitement back, feeling really alive again, she said, her tone soft but determined. Jordan is full of life, energetic. I miss that spark. And let's be honest, you've noticed Marissa too. She's young and beautiful. Maybe this is something new we can share, openly and honestly. No secrets. My jaw tightened as I shook my head. You honestly think this will fix anything between us? I asked. She didn't hesitate. I do. We've spent 30 years together, Lucas. We built a life, raised a daughter, shared everything. But if we're honest with ourselves, things aren't what they once were. The spark, the passion, it's faded. This trip isn't just a celebration. It's a chance to rediscover what we've lost. Maybe this is what we need. My laughter sounded bitter as I gripped the balcony railing. So your solution is to sleep with someone else? Kendra gave a small, reassuring smile. It's not betrayal, she said quietly. It's about exploring something new. Jordan brings a different energy, and I want that. Marissa wants you. We could do this together, Lucas. It might be good for both of us. I felt every muscle tense as I looked at her, my wife of 30 years, the woman I had built my life around, the mother of our child. Her words echoed inside me, each one sharper than the last. If you go through with this, I said quietly but with certainty, we're done. Kendra didn't so much as blink. She stood there, arms crossed and head tilted, her expression as casual as if I'd told her the weather looked nice. Lucas, I paid for this trip, and I intend to make the most of it. If you want to sulk, be my guest, but I'm not going to let you spoil this for me. My fists tightened, knuckles white. So this was what 3 decades together came down to? Our anniversary, reduced to her just doing whatever she pleased? She exhaled, her tone unshaken. It's not cheating if I'm being upfront with you. Honestly, if you refuse, I'll just invite both of them anyway. I have zero qualms. Nausea churned in my gut, a cold wave of dread passing through me. Picturing my wife in another man's embrace was bad enough, but now she dangled the possibility of a threesome in front of me, almost daring me to feel the sting. Anger flooded through me, my jaw clamped shut. If you've already made up your mind, Kendra, then there's really nothing left here worth salvaging. Breath shaky, I tried to control the fury burning in my veins. Fine, go ahead. Run to Jordan. Have your fun. Have your night with both of them. Just don't expect me to stick around afterward. She stayed impassive, her composure unbroken. I shot her a final bitter glare, my voice dripping with disdain. You might as well start looking for a divorce lawyer. With that, I turned and left. By the time I got back to the villa, I was still fuming, half hoping, despite everything, that she'd had a change of heart. But she stood in front of the mirror, calmly fixing her hair, lipstick poised, preparing for a rendezvous, only not with me. She glanced over with a sly smile. Here's your last chance, she said, her voice sweet, but poisoned. You can either spend tonight with a gorgeous young woman or stay here and imagine me with Jordan and Marissa. Up to you. Her words hung in the air, a taunt more than a choice. I took a step closer, an icy smile forming. My reply was cold as stone, each word laced with venom. One final opportunity, Kendra. You can either try to fix what's left of us or live with what comes next. And I guarantee, when I'm finished, no one will be able to help you. She scoffed, rolling her eyes and flicking her hand in dismissal. Don't threaten me, Lucas. You don't own me. I've given you 30 years of my life, stayed faithful, and for what? She turned back to her reflection, her face set. Being with you is lifeless. I feel nothing, just numbness and routine. Most of the time, I have to pretend it's anything else. Her eyes found mine in the mirror, lips curling into a sneer. So do us both a favor and stop embarrassing yourself. Something inside me gave way. If Kendra wanted to fight dirty, I was ready to match her. She'd spent the whole day tearing me apart, treating me like an obstacle in her path, but she seemed to forget I wasn't built to just sit and take it. I closed the distance between us, my words coming out sharp and frigid. Since you're so eager to take this road, let me give you something back, darling. I let the term sting, watching her composure flicker. You call me boring? Here's the truth, sweetheart. Being with you is about as thrilling as watching paint dry in a thunderstorm. Every time, it's like dragging a razor over a sunburn. Her face tightened, but I didn't stop. And while we're being honest, let's not pretend you're a catch either. It's like something crawled up inside you and died. The stench is getting harder to ignore. Her eyes burned with fury, but I held her gaze, letting a cold smirk cross my face. So, no, you weren't the only one faking it. I kept trying because I cared. But since you're intent on humiliating me, I might as well return the favor. She stared daggers at me, fists clenched. I reached over, grabbed my electric trimmer from the nightstand, and tossed it onto the bed. No matter how much you dress up tonight, I know where this ends. Here, take the trimmer. Jordan might thank me for the tip. For the first time, her confidence wavered. She stiffened, anger flaring behind her eyes. Maybe it was the insult, or maybe she just didn't expect me to stand up to her. Regardless, the mask was starting to slip. Still, she turned away, grabbing her perfume and spraying herself as if drowning in scent could cover up the betrayal. I watched her, silent, my rage cooling into a sharp, hardened resolve. She had made her play. Now it was my turn. Perched on the edge of the bed, I stretched out my legs and let a knowing smirk linger on my face. She might think she was orchestrating the night, but she couldn't see how deep the damage already went. Nothing could undo what had already been done. It was her choices that had reduced our marriage to ruins, yet here she was, expecting me to sort through the debris. Her heels struck the floor with each step, echoing through the room as she moved with a poise that faltered just beneath the surface. She hesitated in the doorway, a small shiver running through her posture. Glancing back at me, she searched my expression for any trace of surrender, maybe hoping I'd give in. Perhaps she thought I'd chase after her, reach for her hand, and plead with her to stay. But I only leaned forward, elbows braced on my knees, and let out a low chuckle. You left the trimmer, I said. Her lips thinned, irritation flickering in her gaze, but she said nothing. With no reply, she slipped out of the room. Not once did she turn to look at me. Left alone, I stared at the void where she'd stood, feeling my chest ache with a sorrow I wished I could ignore. 3 decades, 30 years of shared laughter, hardship, and love, erased in a single night. And for what? All for a brief romance with someone younger? To try and reclaim a lost youth no matter what we had built together? I let out a heavy sigh, gripping my phone as the full weight of the situation settled over me. There was no salvaging our marriage. It was over, but I refused to let her walk away without facing the fallout. My thumb hovered over my contacts until I found Brielle, my daughter, my constant supporter. She picked up after one ring. "Dad?" she answered, her voice thick with sleep and worry. "Why are you calling so late?" Swallowing, I steadied myself before speaking. "Brielle, your mother's gone to be with a younger man tonight. She set up this entire trip for that reason. She told me herself." My voice caught, but I forced myself to keep going. "I'm leaving. I'll catch the first flight home. She can stay here." "What?" Brielle sounded shocked, her voice rising. "Dad, please, slow down." She pressed for more details. Running my hand through my hair, I clenched my jaw. "I just needed you to hear it from me," I said, hesitating at what I knew I had to say next. "I'm sorry for what I'm about to do." "Dad, wait. What do you mean? What are you going to do?" she pleaded, alarmed. I gave her no answer, just ended the call before she could ask any more. My heart raced as I stared at the phone in my hand. Determined, I dialed the hotel reception. "Good evening, Mr. Whitmore. How can we help you?" The receptionist was unfailingly polite. I inhaled slowly, steadying myself. "I need to report something to the police." Back in the States, two women together might barely raise an eyebrow. But here in the Maldives, it was a different matter. Sharia law's Section 411 was clear. Same-sex relationships could mean up to 8 years in prison, plus 100 lashes. Kendra had chosen her path. Now it was up to me to finish the story. The police arrived soon after, two officers in immaculate uniforms stepping into the lobby, cautious yet courteous. I greeted them and gestured for them to sit. Officer Rahman folded his arms. "Sir, you requested immediate assistance. What's the issue?" Leaning forward, I spoke quietly. "It's a delicate situation. My wife and another woman are currently breaking Section 411 of your laws." I paused, letting the weight of my words hang. "This is incredibly hard for me, but I respect your country's laws. They should apply to everyone, regardless of who's involved." The younger officer glanced at Rahman, uncertainty in his eyes. "Sir, these are foreign nationals. Handling such cases is complex." I shook my head, feigning regret. "I do understand, but for laws to mean anything, they must be upheld without exception. Otherwise, what's their purpose?" I took out my wallet and placed several fresh bills on the table. "Of course, I know this is not simple. Please consider this a small gesture of appreciation for your time, your discretion, and your commitment to justice." Rahman's gaze lingered on the money before he spoke. "We'll look into it," he said cautiously. I sat back, nodding with satisfaction. That's all I ask. I'm just a man who believes in the rule of law. Decades spent as a salesman had prepared me for this moment. I'd just brokered the most consequential deal of my life. Retribution, disguised as a plea for justice. Almost 2 hours had passed by the time I packed the last shirt into my suitcase. Right then, my phone rang. Kendra's name appeared on the screen. Of course it did. I didn't answer, letting the call fade out. Moments later, another buzz. Persistent, as always. A touch of desperation, I mused, the corners of my mouth lifting in a subtle, sardonic smile. I carried on zipping up my bag, undisturbed. After all, she'd started this entire mess. Now she could deal with the consequences. I swept my gaze around the room one last time, making sure I wasn't forgetting anything. That's when I spotted Kendra's passport lying unnoticed on the nightstand. I picked it up, turning it over in my hand, and with little hesitation, slipped it into my own luggage. How forgetful of me, I thought, feigning innocence as I muttered the words under my breath. What an oversight. A dry, mirthless laugh escaped me. With my suitcase trailing behind, I made my way down to the lobby, the wheels making a gentle clicking sound across the floor. The receptionist acknowledged me with a polite nod as I approached the desk. "Checking out, sir?" he asked. "That's right," I replied, handing over my card. "I'll just settle my share." I offered a practiced shrug. "My wife's things are still in the room. She'll take care of her end." The clerk paused for a second, uncertainty flickering across his face. "Will your wife be staying on?" he ventured. I gave him a tight-lipped smile. "That's her decision," I said coolly. "I won't be around to see what she chooses." He completed the transaction, handed me my receipt, and wished me a good journey. "Thank you for your stay, sir. Safe travels." "I'm sure I will," I replied, collecting my things and heading out the door. At the airport, I moved through security without incident, a surprising calm settling over me. The previous hours had been a blur, but now, as I waited at the gate for my flight, a sense of accomplishment took hold. Something I hadn't felt in ages. When I finally made it home and stepped into the familiar hallway, I hadn't even finished setting down my bags before I heard someone coming. Turning, I saw Brielle in the living room, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. She'd made it back before me. "What did you do?" she demanded, her voice sharp and accusing. I raised an eyebrow, letting my suitcase fall to the floor. "Well, that's a nice greeting," I answered, feigning obliviousness. But Brielle wasn't interested in pleasantries. "Drop the act, Dad," she shot back, taking a step forward. "Mom's in jail." She barely paused, the words spilling out in a rush, tight with anger and disbelief. "Everyone's trying to get her out, and you're here acting like nothing happened." I took a slow breath and kept my voice calm. "I really don't know what you're talking about," I replied evenly. Brielle's hands balled into fists. "Mom was with Jordan and Marissa," she blurted, her whole body trembling. "There was a raid, no warning, the police stormed the villa. All three were arrested, and the charges are serious. She could get up to 8 years if convicted." Leaning against the kitchen counter, I crossed my arms and let a frosty, almost satisfied smile touch my lips. 8 years, I echoed, letting the words hang in the air. That's a stiff sentence for one night with someone half your age. I shook my head, releasing a brittle chuckle. Guess chasing after lost youth comes at a price. Brielle's eyes blazed. "This isn't funny, Dad!" she shouted. "We need to help her." I sighed and motioned toward the couch. "No," I said, my voice firm. She stared at me, speechless. "What are you saying?" she managed, her voice cracking. I looked her in the eye, unmoved. "Tomorrow morning I'm filing for divorce," I declared, each word deliberate. Brielle's face contorted with disbelief. "You can't just do that," she pleaded, her voice rising in desperation. My gaze hardened. "I can, and I will," I replied coldly. "You'll see." She looked at me as if I'd slapped her. "Your mother humiliated me," I went on, my voice low and steady. "Did she really think I'd just take her back and pretend nothing happened?" I leaned in, making sure every word struck home. "Even the most beautiful roses have thorns, Brielle." She pressed her lips together, swallowing hard. Now she gets to feel what it's like. Brielle left that night without another word. I let her go, didn't call after her, just watched her walk out and felt the burden of my choice settle heavily on my chest, heavier than I'd expected. But I was determined. There would be no turning back. The next morning I found myself in my lawyer's office. Across the desk sat a man in his 50s, glasses perched on his nose, flipping through the stack of papers I'd brought. His eyes widened as he recognized the name. He looked up at me, clearly taken aback. "Wait, Kendra? Kendra Whitmore?" I leaned back in my chair and nodded. "That's right." He let out a slow whistle, shaking his head. "So you're the husband everyone's been hearing about in the news." I furrowed my brow, pretending not to understand. "She's all over the news," he said, incredulity written all over his face. "You haven't seen a single report? This has gone worldwide." He explained that the U.S. Embassy was working frantically to get them out. They'd even put out a formal warning, advising Americans to steer clear of any behavior that might offend countries with strict laws. He shook his head and gave a low laugh, still in disbelief. "That blew up way faster than anyone expected." I let out a breath, half amused. "You're not wrong," I replied. The lawyer flashed a smile. "If you want, I'd be happy to take your case. Actually, I'll even give you a discount." I raised an eyebrow. "How generous of you." He shrugged, unfazed. "To be honest, I'm thinking about making this a public spectacle, a case that really sends a message. With all this publicity, it could be a career changer for me." He leaned in, a sly grin tugging at his lips. And since Kendra was so desperate for attention, why not give her real fame? He was practically vibrating with excitement. I hesitated, letting it all sink in. Kendra had always chased after youth and excitement, and now she was caught in a whirlwind she couldn't escape. There was something almost poetic about it. I nodded. "Let's do it." By the next day, My name was everywhere. TV anchors picked the story apart, their concern clearly for show. Headlines blared about betrayal, scandal, and a mess that spanned continents. Heartbroken husband files for divorce after wife sparks global incident. I drank my coffee, amused by the spectacle. I could just imagine Kendra, trapped somewhere, forced to watch as her reputation was torn apart on national television. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, interview requests, invitations to appear on talk shows. I ignored them all, refusing to speak to the press. 2 weeks later, Kendra was brought home. Thanks to intervention from the embassy, she and her companions were finally freed from their ordeal. She landed back in the U.S., humiliated, but at least no longer detained. I knew exactly where she'd go first, our house. I made sure to be ready. When she finally showed up, dragging her suitcase to the front door, I barely cracked it open, just enough for the process server to step forward. A man in an immaculate suit approached, holding out documents. "Kendra Whitmore?" he asked. Kendra looked from him to me, panic filling her eyes. "Lucas, please." The man cut her off, handing her the papers. "You've been served," he said, offering the divorce documents. Kendra's hands shook as she flipped through the pages, tears gathering before she could finish reading. "You're divorcing me?" Her voice trembled, almost inaudible. I crossed my arms. "What exactly did you think would happen?" Her lips trembled. "I messed up, but I still love you." A cold laugh escaped me. "Love? Is that what you call it?" She crumpled, sobbing right there on the porch. "Lucas, please, we can fix this. We can go to therapy. We can—" I leaned back, gripping the doorframe. "Maybe therapy will do you good. I'm fine. We're finished, Kendra." Without another word, I closed the door on her. I knew she'd be heading straight to Brielle's next. Soon after, we were in court. The judge, an elderly man with silver hair, looking weary from years of seeing it all, already knew about the international mess Kendra had created. As soon as she sat down, Kendra began making excuses, claiming that her fling with a younger man was just an attempt to rekindle our marriage. The judge massaged his temples, unimpressed. "Let's be clear, Mrs. Whitmore," he said. "This court does not consider adultery a valid way to improve a marriage." Kendra shrank into silence. The hearing moved quickly. My attorney was sharp, but the law was the law. I got to keep my mother's house and my inheritance, but everything else was split down the middle. Half of what I owned, gone with a signature. I finished the paperwork, sighing, wishing for a fleeting moment that we'd filed somewhere like the Maldives, where maybe things would have played out differently. A few days later, Kendra caught me outside the courthouse. She looked tired, defeated, much older than before. For once, she didn't try to hide it. "Lucas," she said softly, her voice frail. "I'm sorry." I stared at her for a long while before speaking. I was the one who called the authorities. I finally told her. Whatever remorse she had vanished, replaced by pure anger. "What?" she snapped. "I gave them the tip," I said calmly. "I made sure they knew exactly where you'd be." Her face contorted with rage. Without warning, she lunged at me, claws bared. People nearby gasped as others stepped in, holding her back before she could reach me. I straightened my jacket and met her glare, unfazed. "You just made things simpler for me," I said. The very next day, I filed for a restraining order, my final step in closing this chapter of my life. It had been 3 weeks since my last visit to the animal shelter, and as I walked in, I was met by that familiar cocktail of scents: shedding fur, industrial disinfectant, and the stubborn trace of wet dog. The building thrummed with the racket of barking, nails scratching against the floor, and tails thudding rhythmically against metal enclosures. A young employee sporting a logo-stamped shirt approached, assessing me as someone who might be taking a dog home. "Are you hoping to adopt a dog today?" she inquired. I glanced around at the rows of kennels. I'm interested in German shepherds, I answered. Her eyebrows shot up in mild disbelief. We actually have several. How many did you have in mind? I couldn't help but smile. 5. She hesitated, clearly startled. 5 dogs? That's a serious commitment. I chuckled. Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. She led me through the aisles, pointing out the shepherds they had. Some were energetic youngsters, full of exuberance. Others were older, more reserved, but still commanding respect. It didn't take me long to pick out my favorites. 5 outstanding German shepherds, each one unique, all alert and deeply loyal. As I completed the paperwork, I ran my hand over the biggest one's head. What do you think, buddy? Brandon could only handle 2. I've got 5. Who's the real champ now? I murmured, watching his tail wag against the floor. My grin widened. That's what I thought, friend. I couldn't deny it. A wave of quiet satisfaction washed over me as I settled my new pack into the back of my SUV. Meanwhile, Kendra got exactly what she'd been after. News quickly made the rounds that she had made a name for herself on OnlyFans, cultivating her image as mommy for her followers. This story has come to an end. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.